and welcome back to the Sunshine Cafe. I'm Lisa Roers, your host, and today is our 2 of 2 summer replay. Today's summer replay takes us back down one of the most downloaded and most talked about episodes ever at the Sunshine Cafe. If you've ever struggled with sugar or wondered why it has such a hold on so many of us, then this episode is a must listen for you. Packed with science, real stories, and a path toward freedom, it's easy to understand why this one has been one of our highest viewed episodes of all time. Because let's be honest, sugar is everywhere. And for many of us, it's not just a sweet treat, but it's actually more like an addiction. And there's a very good reason why that's true. But this conversation isn't about shame, it's about freedom. In this episode, we're going to uncover why sugar hijacks the brain and how it's engineered to keep you hooked. And more importantly, how to break that cycle and reclaim your health. This is all with the amazing Dr. Rhona, and I know you're going to love this episode, so let's dive into our summer replay number 2. Welcome back to the Sunshine Cafe. I'm Lisa Roers, your host, and hey, thanks for joining me today. I'm here just to pour some positive back into your day with practical tips and stories to encourage and inspire. So let's dive in. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Sunshine Cafe. This episode is launching just after Thanksgiving here in the United States. So before I dive into the program, I just wanted to pause and say thank you. Thank you to all of you. Gratitude is so important, and I truly am thankful for each of you who listen in each week and subscribe and like and comment and share. Those little things might seem small to you, but they really mean more to me than you could possibly know. My guest today is Dr. Rhona Epstein. She's a licensed psychologist and addictions counselor and also a marriage and family therapist. She's also award-winning author of multiple books on topics related to food addiction and recovery. Dr. Rhona began her own recovery journey as a teen after battling binge eating and bulimia from childhood. And she was affected so deeply by her recovery process that she decided to devote the rest of her life to help others climb out of that same insanity pit that she climbed out of all those years ago when food addiction and obsession was hijacking her own thinking. So let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to the Sunshine Cafe. Today, Dr. Rhona is with us to share some brilliant insights about food addictions. And so, Dr. Rhona, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I know you've helped people through addiction with both drug and alcoholism as well. But I know that a lot of your passion is helping people with the food addictions that people struggle with. Could you tell us a little bit about your story, kind of how your story brought you to that kind of practice?
Sure thing. So I'm one of these people who had a raging, crazy relationship with food from the time I was really little. I had like a preoccupation with sweets, totally. I was one of these kids who wouldn't eat anything else except for candy, cookies, anything sweet, right? So I lived on Oreos and ice cream and Captain Crunch and Pop Tarts and whatever was sweet, right? But I was like kind of crazy with it, yet like hiding, sneaking, obsessing, even from the time I was little. So that's the kind of thing with people with eating issues. Usually, it's not like other addictions. Usually, you don't really get to drugs and alcohol until you're kind of a teenager. But with food, it's young, right? So I was a kid already kind of getting into sneaky, lying, sort of hiding, slippery, kind of crazy behavior. And so, yeah, but who knew? We didn't know back then. I'm kind of old now, but back then we didn't have words for eating disorders and we didn't have treatment for eating disorders. And so who knew, right? I ate the box of Oreos and my mom replaced it.
We were never the wiser. I mean, I don't think our parents really even understood what the contents of those things we were eating was even doing to our systems.
Right? No, who knew? Right? So yeah, I mean, other than there was always the fat shaming. I mean, we did that, but today we have brain science and we can understand that it's addictive. But we didn't have much understanding of anything back then, and we were eating chemical. I mean, we're eating chemicals. Now we understand that a lot of the things that people get hooked on have been purposely made. If you read about the food industry and sugar, particularly, all those things, the cookies and the crackers and those cereals and all those things, they've been made, manufactured, so people won't be able to stop eating them.
Yeah, they have actual whole departments that are specifically designated to create that almost addictive nature. No, it's probably not called the Department of Addiction, but but it's a lot less blatant than that. But you're right, they're in it for profit, right? So they're in it to make money. And the more addicted you are to something, the more you're going to buy. Like you said, eat the Oreos, mom replaces them. And I've read there's like more than 50 common words on our ingredient labels for sugar. So it's not just looking for sugar on a label, it's all the other kinds of sugar that they are now putting into things that make us addicted to them.
That's right. That's right. Oh, yeah, and the science is saying that sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine.
Oh, 8
And
times. Wow.
8 times, which makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. I mean, there's way more people who are walking around struggling with abusing and overeating sweets than cocaine. I
Well,
mean,
yeah. And cocaine's not available on every single corner like sugar is. Sugar is available everywhere. It's just saturated our lives. It's at the coffee shop. It's in your bread, which should really only have 4 ingredients. And now I just checked my label actually this morning. It's got 2 different kinds of sugar in it. And it's labeled organic, natural, but it's got so much sugar.
it's exactly right. I was trying to train a dietitian how to help clients with food addiction, and we went into the bread aisle to find bread that doesn't have sugar, and really most every bread was like second or third ingredient sugar
Right.
or some other form of sugar. Yes, and so it was like, yeah, pretty much hardly anything in that aisle.
Exactly.
So, yeah, so you're not kidding, it's everywhere, and, so we have to kind of really look at what's happened to us, and today, there are people who are trying to help to kind of change because we do have an obesity epidemic and eating disorders, and I think there's a lot of arguing going on politically and amongst the professionals that help with eating disorders. I mean, it could be an entirely crazy conversation if we talk about all the disagreements that people have about all these issues. But there are people today who are really out there trying to change policy to try to help us to look at how we're hurting our culture by just feeding ourselves with such awful junk food. It's really, to keep on putting this junk into our systems and then parents thinking that it would be preposterous to take the cookies away and to swap them for healthier cookies. I mean, you can't believe I put a post on Facebook and my social media, and it was like almost crazy. I know I'm not used to going viral, but this went viral, my only one. But I did something where I talked about the addictiveness of Oreos.
Mm.
And I was saying how I couldn't stop eating them when I ate them, and there were all these people, so many people, it was like, unbelievable. Thousands of people getting on saying, "Me too, me too, me too, me too." And so people were really relating to this, feeling out of control about the Oreos, and I think it was, like, extremely helpful. But you always have these people getting on, shooting at me because, "How dare you?" Because you're ruining the children's, lives by suggesting that this is bad.
Isn't that something?
And but I understand where they're coming from because they're afraid that, you're gonna make them scared of food and you're gonna turn them into anorexics or something, which is understandable. But, the fact of the matter is we've trained ourselves to see really bad food as something fun and we should have it but for me it was a life of destruction, and for the people I work with, I mean, you have people now have to take shots because they have diabetes or they're so overweight they can't walk, and so now the doctor's putting them on shots or surgeries, and my clients are coming into me all the time telling me the doctor wants me to have surgery, the doctor wants me to take these shots. And so we're gonna make you eat the junk food because that's the cultural right thing to do. And now we're gonna have to treat that with surgeries and shots. So, anyway, yes, my story is that I started recovery at 17. thank God. And I got into a recovery group that was like an addictions model. And I got off sugar and I don't eat sugar because to me it's like heroin. And I found a relationship with God and I
Mm.
had to learn body, mind, and spirit how to have a transformation. Not a diet, but a total transformation, body, mind, and spirit,
For
really.
sure.
So yeah.
And that's got to start in the mind. It's a mindset first before you can make any physical changes around you, just getting to that the right way to look at it. When you say you gave up sugar, since sugar is everywhere, there has to be a definition in your mind of what sugar is because it literally is in everything. So how do you stay away from sugar when it's in the ketchup and it's in the mustard and it's in the bread and it's in the sauce at the restaurant or it's in the marinade on the steaks? How do you stay away from sugar?
Yeah, well, everybody's different about how that works in terms of the rigidity and the level of like how
Mhm.
I guess I kind of feel like there's a threshold with it. But most people in the food addiction arena where like there's this is a small contingent of people who work with eating disorders who specialize in food addiction, sugar addiction. So there's like this fifth ingredient rule. So if you read a label, usually the highest concentration is the first couple ingredients, and the lower you get in the list of ingredients is the lower concentration, right? So after the fifth ingredient, it's usually safer to choose. So, obviously, when you learn to read labels,
Mhm.
I tend to eat things that don't have sugar, honey, molasses, things like that. I'm very careful and selective. Um, so I've trained myself. It's been years now, over 40 years. So, and I stopped eating sugar in May of 1983.
Oh my goodness. Can I just like celebrate that for a moment? That's really something. That's an accomplishment in our society to make that consistent long-term change. So good for you. And it gives me and maybe anybody listening hope that it's possible. And I'm interested to hear that you also cut honey out, for example, and there's some natural sugars in honey of pure maple syrup or even fruit. How does that affect you and how do you look at those things?
Yeah, well, I eat fruit, but yeah, I mean, I guess you have to see it like this. For me, when I say it's like heroin, I mean, I'm really being serious about it. Like my life when I was eating sugar was no fun. I mean, this is not like about, oh, I was overweight and I went on a diet and lost weight. It's not like that. My experience as an overeater was that I was in a bondage and a
Mm.
stronghold. It was like I couldn't, they use the word hijacking your brain in addiction language, okay? I had no peace.
Mm.
I thought about food and my weight all day long, 24/7. I could not concentrate in school as a student. I was a terrible student. I have a doctorate today, which I would not have if I had continued to eat like that because I could not concentrate or think straight. When I was with people, I wasn't really with them because my mind was completely absorbed in the insanity with the food, my weight, what I looked like, blah, blah, blah. I
Mm.
couldn't I couldn't focus. So I wanted to die because I felt like I was going out of my mind and I couldn't stop. So, trying to diet, never being able to stick to it. I could maybe lose a little bit of weight on a diet, but then, never could stick to it because the cravings and the compulsion would come over. I was emotionally eating, I was using food, I couldn't stay on it. So I would be pretending to be on a diet in front of people and then completely hiding and sneaking and lying. So I was like two-faced,
Mhm.
pretending to be okay in front of people and then like this maniac abusive food abuser behind closed doors. So for me, when I don't eat those things, to me, I'd be crazy to eat it because
Mm.
that's how I see it. It's like a peanut allergy to me. Like if you know you're going to have anaphylactic shock, you don't eat peanuts.
Good point.
Right. So I don't see it like, oh, I'm like really good. I don't eat sugar, like good me. I see it like it's a life and death thing. And I need to get off sugar because if I eat it, I'm a crazy person.
Got it. It makes a lot of sense because when you look at it that way and you see it as an allergy,
Yeah.
Celiacs don't eat gluten for a reason. Now, there's gluten sensitivity, that's a different thing. But if you're truly celiac, you're not going to be eating gluten. If you have that peanut allergy, you're not going to be eating that. I know you had mentioned too that when you were in the depths of your addiction and you were really overcome by that sugar effect, you couldn't think straight and it had, as you said, hijacked your thinking. There's a lot of depression amongst our young people these days. And I know that depression can be exacerbated, if not created, by the
Yeah.
effects of sugar. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that might be affecting our young people?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like I said, I was passively suicidal. I thought about dying all the time. And I actually ended up in a psychologist's office, and I am certain I watched her face. I mean, she did not know what to do with me. I was so down and so dark. It was like there was no hope. Until I broke free from this, there was no hope.
Mm,
And as a counselor now working for decades with people, when a person walks into my room, I can tell when they've been in the food or when they've not been in the food by the look on their face, like their countenance.
mm,
If it's been, off the junk food and they've been clean for a while and they come walking in and you could see that there's a levity and there's a kind
mm.
of feeling okay. But when they get into the food and they start binging, they don't even have to tell me. I
Wow.
can look at their face because they come in, they're everything they say is negative. I hate my life, I hate my family, I hate my husband, I hate my parents, I blah, blah, blah. It's all dark.
Mhm.
And so, I think Mark Hyman, who is a well-known functional medicine doctor, he said this, it's just a simple thing, but it's just so true. He says, if you eat crap, you feel like crap. And it's true. I think there's no question about it. Or if you put junk in, you're going to feel, well, pretty bad.
Right.
It's just common sense.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I like the words that you used a few minutes ago about breaking free. How do you break free from that? Do you have some advice?
Well, yes, it's a complicated process. And
I
so,
bet. I bet it is.
well, the truth is, Lisa, I've had people come into my office and be like, I never heard of this before.
Mm,
You know, they really weren't that complicated as a person. They just didn't know. And the light bulb goes on, and they realize I have been trying to stop overeating my whole life through all this diet stuff. And I never understood before the battle is an addiction.
mm,
And once they are armed with that information and the light goes on and they get it, it's like over.
mm.
And that's the end of it. They just know I have to quit eating sugar. I have to learn to read the labels. And it's just as simple as that.
Wow.
Now, that rarely ever happens.
Okay.
But,
It sounds easy, but knowing what to do and doing what you know are two different things, right?
well, it's just because there's other reasons why. That would be if a person's reason is that they just didn't have any knowledge or there was a physiological thing going on, which I do believe it's again body, mind, and spirit. So the fact that we as a culture don't understand the addictiveness of these foods. So if we understood it, like we understand, like, when you have children and they're going into middle school, you start warning them, be careful. Your friends might start drinking and doing drugs. It's very addictive. Be careful. If we warn people, you
Hmm.
know, everyone knows to be careful about those things, but no one tells you about the Oreos or the ice cream.
Yes.
They say, "Oh, you'll get fat. Don't eat too much of that." But they don't say, "Be careful. You might not be able to stop."
Right. That's a good point. And yet we serve up the cake and the cookies at Christmas and Thanksgiving, and we serve up the cake at the birthday parties, and you get the sucker at the bank, and you get a haircut, and you get another sucker there. And it's like we're constantly feeding that addiction without any warning, like you said.
No warning, no thoughts about it. Nobody actually thinks about, I mean, I even at Celebrate Recovery, which is a Christian group for recovery, my clients who have food problems will go there looking for Christian help for their food addiction and they are met with food at the beginning of the meeting. They're serving up pizza, and which, it doesn't work for people with addictive eating because they're not just addicted to sugar. It's white flour, the sugars in the tomato sauce. I mean, they can't eat pizza. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Well, and there isn't anything else. Like that people aren't even conscious. So you have these people who really need to be at this meeting and they can't really appreciate meeting there. And there's more people in the church with food problems than the other addictions. I guarantee it. And I'm not saying that, there's nothing wrong with pizza for people who don't have that problem.
Right.
It's fine, eat the pizza. I don't, but if you have a problem, pizza's not your friend, right? So,
Exactly.
um, you
You
know,
have to think about it like the alcoholic in the respect that you wouldn't set out wine and beer if you were having a meeting of people who you knew were coming with alcoholism in their history. It's like, it's like causing your brother to slip. That's another scripture about you wouldn't want to do that. And that's one of the reasons a lot of people in the church are so against alcohol. Because, oh, I don't want to tempt my brother, brother or my sister to slip into alcoholism. And yet they don't even, like you said, they turn a blind eye to anything sugar.
well, not only that, but frankly, I will say this. As a culture, I have had people kick back, even in the eating disorders arena, counselors and doctors who will kick back hard against this concept,
Hmm.
even though it makes perfect sense. If you go into, there's 12-step programs all over the country and all over the world, people like myself who have found freedom by seeing it like a drug and understanding it this way, but you have people who are against this philosophy because they are insisting that it's restriction for an eating disorder. And so they're saying, well, you can't tell people to restrict their food, but it's not the same as restriction. I don't restrict my food. I eat abundantly. I eat healthy. I eat a lot. Like I eat really well. I don't starve myself. I'm not on a starvation diet. I just don't eat the foods that are the ones that call my name all day long and make me feel like I can't stop.
Right.
And there's a big difference between me sitting down to an abundant, healthy meal that I love, and then I'm satisfied at the end and I'm full, and then eating something that calls my name all day long and drives me insane.
And you can eat the entire box and you're still not satiated.
Exactly.
That temptation is never fulfilled. That cup has no bottom.
Exactly. Exactly. But the world fights against this concept. And so if I even use the term food addiction, people will say, oh, that's not real.
Wow.
And yet, why are there thousands of meetings that in the basements of churches where people are getting free from their food addictions by recognizing this? So it's a tough issue, and I get it. I don't blame people. I mean, even people come to me and they're like, they get excited because it seems like a key to freedom. But then when it comes down to it, just like you're saying, like, wow, how do you do it? And until you actually get it going, it does seem a bit overwhelming. It does.
Yeah, it does. But changing any of our habits can feel overwhelming. Really, we're capable of hard things. And we just have to realize that we can step into something that feels in the beginning like it's hard. Like, do you remember the first time you tried to drive a car? And it was like, oh my gosh, I got windshield wipers and turn signals, and I got to go hit this way and that way, and the window's open, and I've got somebody talking to me. And it's like all these different things. And it
Right.
felt so overwhelming. Same with
Mhm.
the first day at college. And you're like, I gotta find my classes and I gotta get the right books and I don't know which teacher and I don't know, I've got to pay somebody and I've got to do that. But it is only that way for a while until you get comfortable navigating new territory. And after you're comfortable navigating that, it becomes a new habit. And then it's much easier to navigate.
Well said.
Mm.
Exactly.
Well, and your point about people who don't think it's a addiction, all you need to do is study a couple of these companies that you were mentioning earlier who have entire departments that are scientifically focused on how to make their product more addictive.
Right.
If that
That's
wasn't a thing, they wouldn't have that department doing that work.
find the bliss point. That's the word that they use, the bliss point.
Bliss point. Ooh, the bliss point. That I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
It is. Earlier, you mentioned, and I think this is so true too, about all the disagreements out there and the fighting that people back and forth. You can't deprave a child from sugar. Really? I could deprave them from alcohol. Why would I not deprave them from sugar? We didn't give our son sugar until he was, I think, 5 years old. And just that time of growing without any sugar has made him so healthy. He doesn't have the same immune issues that a lot of young kids whose systems have been overwhelmed by sugar. But just the disagreements that people have, this is good for you, that's bad for you. Oh, you can have some of this, you can't have some of that. I think your words are so wise that just because you can have a glass of wine doesn't mean the addict can have a glass of wine and have it be okay. So we shouldn't shame that person who has a problem with it.
That's right.
And we shouldn't shame them. Same with sugar. Just because you can have a piece of pizza and walk away or a cookie, there's somebody sitting in that room next to you who, like you said, I love how you said that. Those cookies are calling and they can barely focus on the conversation because the only thing they're seeing out that are peripheral is that plate still got cookies on it and they want
Exactly.
one or two or 10.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's exactly right.
So that
So,
creates a lot of confusion, doesn't it? How do you navigate that with your patients?
well, people come to me, I generally know that this is what I specialize in, but I don't assume when a person comes to me that they are going to be somebody who's going to do what I would call an abstinence model, right? Because, if a person can learn to eat sugar in moderation, then I would be all for that.
Mm,
So, for example, you would ask me before, what do you do to break free? And, I think like emotional eating is a thing that's not always an addiction. So I always have to assess with a person, what do they need? Just because a person wants to eat the cookies doesn't mean they're addicted to sugar. A person could learn to eat a cookie without being obsessed with it. The question is, if I did therapy with a person or a person went to counseling or a group, and they could learn, "Oh, I'm eating because I'm bored." This like, I had a client like this. She was like a young mom whose husband worked in the evenings, and, she never had a problem in her whole life with food, and it was the kind of situation where she putting her kids to sleep, and then nobody's there, her husband's away at work, and she was, like, eating while she was watching TV every evening, and she came to me thinking, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what's wrong with me."
mm,
She was bored.
yeah.
Right, it wasn't an addiction, and so we started talking, "Well, what can you do while the kids are sleeping and you're waiting for your husband to come home?" And so, actually it was, like, so easy. I wish all my clients were this easy. Usually, there's usually issues while we're eating. We're eating because of stress, we're eating because of, deep emotional pain, feelings of unworthiness, self-hatred,
Mm,
you know, there's deep wounds from hurts from people in our lives. People have so many multitudes of hurts that come from family or sexual abuse or any kind of thing that a person's endured, and food has soothed and numbed and been there as sort of a go-to way of managing emotional pain.
sure.
Sometimes the person can learn how to deal with emotional pain and not have to be abstinent from sugar. But if a person tries to deal with their emotions by I've seen people who went to 10 rehabs
Mm,
for eating disorders. They've been in and out, and every time they leave the rehab, they go right back to binging and purging. And I'm like, did anybody ever talk to you about an abstinence model? And of course, no, they didn't, because that's not something that's accepted. So here they've done all this emotional work, all this family therapy, years and years of treatment.
mm,
And no one ever said, did you consider not eating the foods that you're binging on? Not even a consideration. So that person, we need to talk about abstinence. Let's try it.
yeah.
Right? So see how it's complicated.
Yeah.
Right? But, and so, I just took a stab at writing a book on different paths because each individual is a little different. One person might need one path, another person might need another path. And I don't really believe in one size fits all when it comes to eating issues.
No, no. Definitely very customized. But it sounds like it starts like with every person you work with, starts with some self-awareness and being aware of what are the drivers of whatever that condition might be. Is it the boredom or is it really an addiction? Is it more like an allergic reaction to this thing that you really do need to be abstinent from? Or is it something you can find balance with? And then educating, I think educating ourselves is so important to understand really what is this stuff doing to our systems. I think that can sometimes help us change the mindset to get toward being able to accept, okay, I'm going to have to abstain from some of these things because I don't want to do that to my body. And I think we don't educate people enough with some of those pieces, but you're right, it's a very personal journey for sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And spiritual, that's the additional piece as believers, right? There's a whole piece about food sort of being a substitute. Well, see, I'm going to go a little deep here, Lisa.
That's okay.
But I mean, here's the thing how I think of it. So there's food and there's weight, right? There's the weight obsession and a food obsession. And I always think about like, I know people may get mad about this, but I see like two idols, right? Right.
Totally. Yes.
Food, we need it for soothing, for escape, get, entertainment, whatever. And God forbid you take it away. That's how you know you have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can't imagine a day without it, right? Then you have a problem, right? But then the weight, like, oh, I have to be thin. I have to be thin, Oh, I'll give people will give their right arm. They will. I mean, we're shooting ourselves up with stuff that we're getting online now, and we don't even know where it's coming from. I mean,
Well, and the long-term damage of that is showing to be very dangerous. But yes.
so what I found in my recovery, the most important thing I found of all, I had to learn to be abstinent. I had to find other healthy ways of managing my feelings. I needed therapy to figure out what to do with my sadness and my grief and my insecurities, how to express my feelings appropriately, anger, fear, insecurity, all the stuff that was there, right? That's what I do all day long with people. Help them if, don't use food, learn how to feel your feelings and manage them appropriately. That it's like a separating of the food and the feelings, right? But spiritually, food becomes a replacement for God. And being able to kind of face that reality, like we say, I love you, Lord, with all my heart and soul. But in fact, actually, when I want comfort, I run to food, not to Him.
Good point. Good
Right.
point. Yes.
Right. So we, on a deep level, being able to realize, like, am I all in with you, God, or do I choose this false God?
Right.
And that's very convicting. But for me, the peace that came to me when I had a revelation that the fight, that even after I stopped overeating, I was still in the battle with the noise and the conflict. I still was having cravings and obsession, but it went away when I had that revelation that I'm making a choice and I want God more than the fix I was getting out of the food. I want Him. He gives me peace, even though I still have to go through horrible things in life. I still want Him more.
Yeah.
And, He's better.
Yeah.
Even though it means I still might have to feel the pain of life.
Yeah. Well, and the obstacles are the only way we learn. I mean, that pain is the only way we improve. And it feels a little counterintuitive, but what's the phrase? The truth hurts. Sometimes the truth hurts. It's convicting. So if you're feeling a little uncomfortable, if anyone out there is listening and feeling like "Ugh, that's ridiculous, it might be a good time to pause and ask whether or not food is something that you have a hard time letting go of. I teach a course on fasting, and there's a lot of different ways to fast. You can fast from sugar. You could fast from the news. You can do a water fast. You could do a juice fast. But I've had a lot of people push back on me too to say, well, I can't give that up. But I'm like, well, really? For a day? You couldn't give news up for a day? What kinds of things are overwhelming your life that you can't let go of for a time? And if you can't let go of them, they are probably a good thing to consider letting go of. It's when it has control over you more than you have control over it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I think your wisdom is so spot on. And I'm really glad that the timing of our conversation here today was when it was, because I think as we lead into the holidays here and past the holidays, it's just a really difficult time to go see friends and family and be at this large spread and figure out, how do I handle this large spread of food and still take care of myself? And
Mhm.
Do you have any tips or advice for people when they're navigating that? Maybe they're early on in that journey of trying to make better choices. How do you coach your patients to navigate those times?
Well, you mean like holiday meals and things like that?
Yeah, or a birthday celebration or
Yeah.
whatever it may
Oh,
be.
yeah. No, they're the toughest of all, right? But so I always say like this, they say in the recovery groups, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Yeah.
And I think planning is the best, like really taking the time to think
Mm,
through, what's going to be there and what am I going to do? And making up your mind in advance exactly what you're going to do and
yeah,
don't wing it.
exactly.
So bring food, like I just this morning had a talk with a client who was saying that she like one of the most tempting things is this candied kind of sweet potato thing. And we talked about her, coming up with a sweet potato dish that's not candied and bringing it. Or I made this delicious apple crisp that's made with apples and pears and it's doesn't have any sugar and everyone loves it. And
Nice.
sugar eaters can put their ice cream on top of it, and it's just as good as apple pie. Actually, people prefer my sugar-free apple crisp to the pies that are on the table, and it's all whole and healthy ingredients. And there's so much now. If a person's willing to carefully consider, there's so many recipes now out there that you can find. I have found some of the most amazing whole food recipes that are made with only whole ingredients that people just love them and they're thankful. It makes me so happy when people come up to me and say, "Can I have the recipe?" And I am making things that are really super healthy that people absolutely love. And so I like to be that person to help influence that in other people. Like you can love healthy food. It doesn't have to be that, oh, poor me, I'm eating a plain piece of turkey with nothing on it. Make your green beans taste good. Make vegetables that are amazing. You
Yeah.
know, make your meal be delicious. Just don't eat the junk.
Right. And I think that's a important comment that our food doesn't have to taste badly and be bland and smooshy. Vegetables can be tasty and beautiful. They don't require vegetable oils and sugars and all these other crazy things that we put into them. But I love that idea of let's be the change makers. Let's be the one that brings the dish that's really good. And oh, by the way, it's clean and it's really good for you.
Exactly. Exactly. I had dinner at a friend's for a holiday, and my friend just very thoughtful stuck, I think it was a pear or an apple that she put in the oven and baked with cinnamon. And it was so delicious. When everybody was having dessert, I was like, I didn't even care because I don't care. I'm happy to drink a cup of tea. I don't need to have dessert.
Yeah.
But that was a treat, it's like that's so yummy, right? And people know I don't eat sugar, so that was like a really thoughtful thing, right?
Exactly. Well, and if you can get past the 10 or 15 minutes it takes for people to eat, then you don't have to live with the guilt that you have for the rest of the day and the junky, cruddy feeling, like you were mentioning earlier, of putting all that stuff in your body. So it's really just this super willpower during the 10, 15 minutes that people are eating. And then you can just enjoy the fellowship and not feel like you have to engage in the food that's really bad for you.
That's right. It's true. And I think, like, to your point, focusing on the fellowship instead of focusing on what you're not having, focus on what you are. Not only the delicious food, but also who's sitting next to you and how can you be a blessing? And is there something you can do to help make the day better for people? I really feel like that's the thing. There's so much more to the holidays than the food that you're choosing not to eat.
Mhm.
You know what
Exactly.
I'm
Right. Let's focus on the memory making and the fun of being together instead of making it all about what we're eating.
Exactly. But that's a decision. It's a shift in thinking. And I see people as they're changing to becoming more, able to kind of disconnect from the food. And that becomes just less and less the focus. And that's what happens when you get free.
Mm,
So when you're in a food bondage, it's all about food and all about the fight. Oh, I want that. No, I don't want that. And you're in your head and you're fighting with it. The temptation's there and it's calling your name. And you're trying not to do it. And when you're done with that, and you don't have it anymore, then you can enjoy everything else.
mm.
People, children, dogs. There's so many things to enjoy at a gathering. maybe. And if you have a difficult family, then, you have your work cut out for you spiritually on how to manage the interesting personalities at the table,
Yes.
which may be the reason why you want to eat. But, that's a whole nother story. And, if you need support, then I recommend people, I was just talking to somebody earlier about maybe having texting one of my young clients who's going home. She was saying that it could be challenging. I thought, well, text with your friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So many wonderful insights and suggestions here, Dr. Rona. I just so appreciate your time and the practical examples you've given us to understand that journey. And do you have a way someone could reach out to you or some resources that you would make available for people to contact you?
Well, I think the best. I have a bunch of books. There's the Satisfied Devotional, and then the Satisfied Workbook, and the new book is the Satisfied Guide to Eating Well. So there's a bunch of books, all available at Amazon. But I have a website, www.drrhona, drrhona.com, and so that's where you can find me. If somebody really identifies like I have a problem and I wanted to get biblically based help, I do a 15-week program called the Satisfied Experience, and run the next one in January. We have one going now. Um,
Beautiful.
yeah, so mhm.
I'm sure that would be a wonderful resource for people. So thank you. I'll make sure that we put those links in the show notes so people can find those things, especially if they want to start the new year with a good 15-week success to reset their life here for this coming year. So thank you so very much, Dr. Rona. Thank you for being with us. I so appreciate your time and your wisdom.
Thank you for having me, Lisa.
Dr. Rona is so easy to talk to and has so many great insights. I hope you found that as valuable as I did. I have 8 takeaways for you today. Number 1, let's remember that sugar is addictive. Food companies know this, food scientists know this, and it's time we all understand the potential here for chemical dependency. Sugar is, after all, a chemical. And Dr. Rona really puts it into perspective when she emphatically tells us that sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine. If you have any sensitivity to alcoholism or drug addiction, whether it's something you've experienced or someone in your family or a friend has struggled with, please consider the fact that there are people who have that same kind of physical, emotional, and spiritual addiction to sugar. If you're struggling to stay away from it, pause and pray and see if whether or not you might have a mild or maybe a major addiction to sugar. Number 2, abstinence is an option. We don't really celebrate not satisfying our desires here in this world. We tend to nag people who choose not to have pie or say no to dessert or even sometimes label them as some kind of a picky eater or a health nut. But it's time, my friends, that we respect someone's desire to abstain from sugar the way that we respect someone's desire not to smoke, not to do drugs, and not to drink alcohol. No, you really don't need to have Aunt Emma's pie. You don't need to bring 4 dozen cookies to the church gathering. And if you do decide to make a recipe, choose one that's made from whole foods and is not sweetened with the addictive things like white sugar. Number 3, use the 5th ingredient rule that Dr. Rona taught us. Dr. Rona gives us a great strategy for how to dial back the sugar. The challenge is that, yes, sugar is in everything. You can't just say, I'm never going to have sugar. But there's a big difference between having a tablespoon straight from the sugar jar or a trace amount of sugar that's in a recipe, a condiment, or a marinade. So, if you do buy things with a label, remember that the ingredients are listed in the order of concentration, from the greatest to the least. So, look at the ingredient list and don't buy things that have sugar or a sugar-type substance listed in the first 5 ingredients. For example, and let's look at Honey Nut Cheerios. 4 of the top 6 ingredients of Honey Nut Cheerios are some kind of sugar. Ironically, if you look on the other end of the aisle, Kellogg's Total has 2 of the first 5 ingredients, which are sugar. And bread is even worse. Nearly every bread you find at the grocery store has added sugar. Country Hearth Whole Wheat has sugar as the 3rd ingredient. Same with Wonder Bread and a variety of other bread brands as well. So my suggestion is for breakfast, stay away from the boxed cereals altogether. Instead, grab yourself a banana and a piece of Ezekiel bread. And while some might say that bananas are high in sugars, they're natural sugars, and it also comes with a beautiful complement of fiber, potassium, and other things that you need to fuel your body. Also, consider making your own bread. I know, like at the outset, it sounds kind of daunting, but people have been making bread for centuries, and it only has 4 ingredients: flour, salt, yeast, and water. Get yourself an oven, those 4 ingredients, you have your own bread, and it's delicious and good for you. Now that is a wonder bread. Number 4, sugar can hijack your brain, just like alcohol, drugs, or other addictions do. And it's really important to be alert and aware of this. If your kids are having issues at school, if they're struggling with depression, attention deficiency, the inability to concentrate and focus, if they're experiencing behavioral problems or they're super hyper all the time, before you load them up with a bunch of prescriptions, try the amazing gift of fixing their diet. Remember, few addicts are going to admit that they have a problem, and your kids certainly won't either. But those with the most serious issue are going to fight you when you suggest taking away their chemical of choice. They will fight you when you try to take away their sugar. Try to challenge them to just try it, to just give it 1 month, or maybe just 1 week. You do need more than just a couple of days, because the body takes a few days to detox, and it's a real thing. You're going to go through a time of detox because the body is actually trying to get the toxic substances out of it. Once you get through those first 2 to 3 days, there will be more peace, more concentration, more focus, more control over your thoughts, and better behaviors from you and your children once you get those sugars out of your body. Number 5, let's start talking about sugar addiction. We warn our kids about alcohol and drugs, and we warn them about smoking. But it's time we start warning them about sugar. It's not a vanity thing. It's not about just getting fat, although gaining weight can be a very serious side effect. But as Dr. Rhona explains, it's more about the fact that if you eat too much sugar, you just might not be able to stop. So let's start proactively talking to our kids and reminding ourselves that this overly celebrated white substance can be really devastating to our mind, our body, and our spirit. So let's start talking about it and be gracious and understanding when someone at the dinner table wants to opt out of dessert. Number 6, deal with all the feels. As Dr. Rhona shared, to get to the bottom of your sugar addiction, you have to find other healthy ways to manage your feelings, your hurts, all of that anger, the grief, the insecurities, and learn how to express your emotions in a healthy way. And despite the temptation, let me tell you, the answer to your problems is not at the bottom of that bag of cookies. Dr. Rhona needed therapy to figure out what to do with all of her emotions and how to express those feelings appropriately. It's okay to need help. We really do need help. Someone said it to me so well. You can't read the label when you're inside the jar. Find somebody who can see your blind spots and create a safe and sanctified space for you to allow the freedom to work through those feelings so you can be freed from the hold that they have over you, your health, and your future. Number 7, has your love for food and sugar become maybe a replacement for God? You know, we are commanded to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. But in fact, all too often, when we really want and need comfort, we run to food, not to God. If that's you, it might be time to find a counselor or therapist, find that safe space, and do the hard work needed to get through those addictive behaviors so you can take food off the throne and put God back on it. And finally, number 8, what is your plan? Intentionally taking the time to plan out what you're going to do in all of those crazy circumstances which may surface will equip you to handle any battle and will help set you up for success. What are you going to do when Aunt Emma sets that pie down in front of you and tells you to eat a second piece? What are you going to do when the family decides to stop for ice cream? What are you going to do when your child has that temper tantrum in the shopping aisle because you say no to the cookies, the candy, or the sugar-laden cereal? What do you think you will do When you enter the office cafeteria and there are free bagels and cupcakes and donuts waiting for you, you've got to give yourself time, maybe a good hour. Sit down and write down every possible crazy thing which might surface. And then ask yourself honestly, what do I want? Do I want to be healthy? Do I want to be freed from this hijacking in my brain and kick this sugar habit? If so, what is your action plan for each of those situations? If you can develop a lightweight plan, it doesn't have to be a difficult plan, but if you can develop a plan and you've walked through it in your brain and you know how you're going to respond, trust me, staying the course will be so much easier. And you are just that much more empowered to choose your future instead of being a victim to the hold that sugar has on you. Don't try to wing it. Make a decision, disconnect the food from the fun, and enjoy the freedom of never thinking about it again. Just imagine, how much more could you do with your life if you never had to think about sugar and you were never haunted by food or those thoughts of your weight ever again? Just imagine, what could God do in and through you if that was just no longer ruminating in your mind? Hey friends, that was a power-packed episode today, and I know it was probably a bit convicting for some of us, but hopefully it will be encouraging and helpful. So thank you so much for joining me. One of my favorite scriptures on the topic of being disciplined for His sake is from Hebrews 12:11. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. There is peace waiting for you. Do the work. Allow yourself to be trained by discipline, and you will find freedom in Christ on the other side of those addictive behaviors that are keeping you stuck. Don't give up, my friend. Let God do the work. Just let Him be still and let Him fight this battle, and you will find peace. Don't give up. There is hope. Hey, would you please take a moment and share this episode? This is a difficult topic, and you never know how much encouragement might be in this conversation that someone you know needs to hear. So pass it along, share it, like it, subscribe, and let's flood the world with more encouragement. Until next time, my friends, stay encouraged, be inspired, and we'll see you right back here next time at the Sunshine Cafe.